we have our own, at this point now, entirely original curriculum, which will play into the story I'm about to tell you. And we have students all over the world, and we have a phenomenal, awesome staff, and we're pretty proud of the school. I'm the head nerd. I've been programming since I was 11, and I'm still a working software developer. So everything we do at the school is infused and influenced by the fact that I'm out there on the front lines making software for private clients and for employers. So we stay current. So that's a little bit about who and what we are. Head nerd is not my actual title, but it's what I do. How are we doing?
Good.
Good. Awesome. Okay. So this is a sordid tale. So I'm going to jump to the next screen here and just cover a couple definitions, and then we'll tell why I'm even having this talk. So disaster recovery plan, a documented process or set of procedures to recover and protect a business IT infrastructure in the event of a disaster. What do we mean by infrastructure? A set of information technology components that are the foundation of an IT service. So let's look at the school.
Your mic is on.
I'll yell really loud. Is that better? Okay,
The button's at the top. Switch. Yeah.
how's that? Are we good? Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. That's what they do in the movies.
Yeah.
Sound pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome. Oh, and you can hear me here. Excellent. Great. Okay, good. So to review, a documented disaster recovery plan, a documented process or a set of procedures to recover and protect a business IT infrastructure in the event of a disaster. What do we mean by infrastructure? A set of information technology components that are the foundation of an IT service. What does that mean here? It means our website, so that people can actually find out about the school. It means our learning management system that all of our students, even if they're in the building, log into to access their courses. And it means the databases behind the scenes that store all of that data, the curriculum itself, all of our student records. That's the information technology components that are the foundation of our service, which is we are a school. So that's a little bit of context. Here's what our disaster was. Our entire infrastructure is out on Azure. Who here is not familiar with Microsoft Azure? Good, okay. So that means all our websites, both the public-facing ones and internal ones. It means our learning management system, which is technically web application. It means our databases, which contains our entire curriculum inside the databases. And our content delivery network. That's a place we store videos so that hopefully they'll be able to pop up pretty quickly when you need them. So here's the specifics of what happened. All those resources, the websites, the databases, they're all stored in an entity out on Azure called a resource group. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of resources. Azure views a database as a resource. A website is a resource. A content delivery network is a resource. So this resource group contains all of these resources. When a resource group is deleted from Azure, all resources in it are permanently deleted. And there's a big giant warning that's supposed to pop up and tell you, hey, if you delete this, here there be dragons. Do not do this. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Because when you click yes, your resource group and everything in it goes away. So look at that last line on this screen. While deleting a minor unused resource, a bad thing happened. I couldn't find the copyright symbol very quickly, or I would have put copyright or registered after bad thing, because it was a truly bad thing. The resource group that resource was in was deleted. That isn't what we tried to do. We were doing a very routine action. I have created and deleted countless numbers of resources out in a resource group. You're just trying out a new website. You spin it up, and then you're like, never mind, and you kill it. Do you want to create a virtual machine? You spin up a virtual machine. Oh, never mind, I really don't want to do Linux right now, and then you kill it. So nothing we did made us expect that this would happen. And in our post-mortem, we have tried to research how it happened, and nothing we did should have caused it to happen. We're taking that up with Azure, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The resource group and everything in it was deleted. Our websites, our database, all of our content. All of our websites went down. Many of you experienced this. All of our databases were lost permanently, and I'll show you why in a second. That means all of our student data was lost. And this is the point where Erik almost had a heart attack. All of our curriculum data, the stuff we worked for 5 years to, if not perfect, at least make workable. So, what did we have as an existing system at the time? We're not idiots. Well, we're partial idiots, as you'll learn. All of our websites, they existed as source code on developer machines. Many of the students here know that one of the things you often get to do during your live project is you get to work on the learning management system. And I think it's great work. You get to see it in use right away. And of course, in-house development on the learning management system and our websites. All of that source code was on many, many different machines, and it's protected in a totally different place in source control. That wasn't really a big worry. We were doing regular database backups. At the time this disaster happened, those backups were within that resource group. And that's where Erik was an idiot. Yeah, we're setting in place regular backups. And we made sure they were being done. I never dreamed that while deleting a minor unused resource, the whole resource group would get deleted. Didn't think that could happen. It's not supposed to. But disasters aren't supposed to happen. You don't plan for them. Well, you don't plan on them happening. You better plan for them. So we lost everything. It's not a fun meeting at all. So first I'm going to go into what did we do. Some of you experienced the user end of this. It was a little bit behind the scenes. After we were done crying, what we did is we created a new Azure resource group. We were going to switch to a different platform. Yeah, we were mad at Azure, but Azure served us extremely well for 5 years. And we wanted to obviously figure out what happened, but we got to get going. So we created a new Azure resource group, and it was empty because it's a new resource group. And I'm telling you, when a resource group gets deleted, it's gone. Gone, gone, gone. Which is a very rare thing in the IT world. Backups and source code and files. A hard delete is not that common a thing, but it is on Azure. And that's why when you intentionally do it, there's a huge warning screen that pops up. So we restored the website. That wasn't that difficult because, again, the source code for the websites were on many different machines, right? Our lead developer actually had it, the most current version, and we were able to get that up and running. Then we gathered all external documents that contain our curriculum. Now, the good news is that we've had partnerships with other entities over the last few months that we've been putting together. And as a result, we had all of our courses in Word documents in a separate place out on Google Drive. Or I don't know if I'd be talking to you right now. I'd be in the Bahamas crying under a palm tree, never to return to anyone ever again. So we did have the curriculum. What did we do then? Well, we basically grabbed everyone we could who knew how to operate our learning management system and create courses. And we created an all-hands team organized on the spur of the moment, but pretty well, to restore those curriculum items. What we did is we took our best and fastest coders and instructors and had them just start as quickly as possible creating new courses. And then we had editors run behind them and fix things as they found them to make them as perfect as possible. And we provided some alternative learning materials for students while we were recovering. They weren't what I wanted, but then again, we created a school because what was out there wasn't adequate. So that's what we did as an emergency action. It worked. We are up and running. It may not be perfect, but then we always continually upgrade the program. But here's what I want to get to, what we built in place of it. And this isn't something, honestly, that a junior developer would have much exposure to. So I'm going to try to find the silver lining and realize that we have an opportunity here to illustrate the importance of a well-designed disaster recovery system and actually educate people that are going to go out into their first jobs with these concepts and have that in mind. It probably isn't likely that the junior devs going to be working on this kind of a system right out of the gate, but you never know. And you might. Also, knowing about it, knowing some of the factors involved and the simplicity of how it's supposed to work will probably help you in your interviews and just in your general knowledge of the industry. So we've put together a short-term and long-term plan, right? Over the short term, we're creating a second Azure account, like literally a completely separate account, not a separate resource group in the same account, but a completely separate account. So when you create an Azure account, typically you do it under your name, like I've got one under erik.d.gross@gmail. I've got a bunch of them, right? But they're tied to like one entity. and that entity is whatever user. So we created a separate account just for disaster recovery. We're calling it our Azure DR, or disaster recovery account. We create daily backups in that account from the existing Azure account that we spun back up. They're done automatically, but more importantly, human verification of the fact that those backups got done is done every single day. When you look out on the web for horror stories under disaster recovery, one of the most common things you'll find is that they put it in place and then they just trusted it to work. That's why we have computers after all, right? You can automate processes. Yes, you absolutely can. Remember this though, that an automated process, the very reason for computers, is to replace what a human could do anyway, manually, but make it happen either faster or on an automatic basis. If a human did this every single day, they would have to be checked to make sure they did it. As an executive, you want to make sure that, hey, who's responsible for the backup today? Did they in fact do it? The fact that you're delegating that responsibility to a CPU doesn't absolve the humans involved of verifying that it actually happened. Maybe belaboring the point, except that when, again, you look at what's happened in some of the more catastrophic disaster recovery sort of situations with companies, this is one of the most common elements, is they put this system in motion, but they never monitor it. And then someone changes the password to an account, and suddenly they aren't being done. Or they didn't know it, but the system that was regularly doing these on a 24-hour basis or whatever was initially kicked off, but it wasn't set to automatically restart anytime a server restarted. It was turned on once and then didn't turn on again when the server restarted, for example. All of these are things I've seen in my career and out on the interwebs. So we have a human eye look every single day to make sure that we actually, that automatically scheduled backup got done. And there are simple written disaster recovery procedures. What do you do? What are the accounts involved? What are the passwords involved? How do you spin up the website very quickly? How do you grab the most recent backup of the database and link it up to the websites so that you can have as little downtime as possible? So that's our short term. The long term is a bit more draconian and old school. It's an on-premises, in this building server. I'm not going to tell you where it is. It's super secure. We aren't even connecting it to the internet. We're taking out the NIC card, the network interface card. We do not want it to be accessible to anyone. Because I got to tell you, and this is a very particular situation. We are a school that has a curriculum. But in any business where this happens, there's a certain core set of their data that if it goes away, it's heart attack moment. For us, it's the curriculum. We can rebuild the website, whatever. The combined knowledge and educational methodology and success and lessons learned of 5 years and hundreds of graduates is contained in that curriculum. Simply put, it's our baby. And if that goes away, what do we have? We have Erik's pretty face, which isn't very pretty. He's not going to do very much, okay? So this on-premises server is only accessible via actual flash drive, and weekly backups are done to it manually by our senior execs, so that no matter what, even if Azure goes down, which probably won't happen, but this was supposed to happen, wasn't it? We have, at the worst case, a week-old version of all of our databases, all of our websites that we can go restore from. So that's what we put in place. Yes, we should have put that in place before, but we didn't. That's what disasters are all about, right? So that's the short version of the presentation. This is such a unique thing that I want to open up the door to any kind of Q&A, any kind of questions. Most of the audience lived through this as students, right? And you have every right to be able to ask any questions. Talk to me about anything. As you probably noticed when it happened, we're rather transparent about what happened. We let people know right away. Well, again, after we stopped crying and what we're going to do about it, we let people know what happened. So I'm going to open up the floor, and I'll be here for as long as you guys want. We can talk about this. It isn't that often I give a tech talk. We can talk about anything else. But are there questions about anything? Make sure someone's just a moment. Make sure someone's monitoring the. Okay, good. In case they have questions. Yeah.
So are all the learning videos completely identical to now as to what they were before?
That's a good question. For those who are online, he asked, are all the learning videos identical to what we had before? Actually, they're not, but they're not changed because of something involved with disaster recovery. There were a number of fundamental changes to how we presented those videos that we already had planned in the works, and we moved up getting that done because we kind of had to create the new courses, so why not implement them the way we wanted? We've gotten a lot of feedback from students over the years that they would prefer shorter versions, shorter video chunks, the more assimilable pieces of data. And I loved that feedback, and so we went through, we carved up our videos into smaller bite-sized chunks. You can only take so much of Erik before you need to take a break. I understand that, right? And so we did that. The people asked and went, okay, good. So the content is the same. The form in which you're going to get it is a little bit different, that's all. Does that answer that question for you? Good. Anything else?
Maybe just a question about the website. That includes the LMS? Are you grouping that all together?
Yeah, when I say websites, yeah, it's our external learncodinganywhere.com website and the learning management system itself. It's one big giant beast of several different projects, but we do consider them separate websites because we have separate functions for them. Does that answer that, or is there another aspect of that you're interested in?
No, that's basically, yeah, I just, it seems like there's the static website with all the information.
Yeah.
And then, of course, yeah, the more dynamic, interactive,
yeah.
app within it. So,
Yep, absolutely.
But, yeah, I don't know if I had a specific question about that. Just, yeah, I was curious.
Yeah, they were both lost, right?
Yeah.
And spinning up the actual sites themselves is a pretty easy thing. If you've got it's a web server. I mean, it's on Azure, and they call it Azure Web Services or whatever name they've changed it to this quarter. But it's essentially just acting as a web server. So if you've got those files that you would publish to any other web server, just shove them on there, spin it up, and you go. And so that was easy for the main static site, learncodinganywhere.com. And it was actually really easy for the LMS, but there was just no content in the LMS. So that's what we had to build out all the time. Because that data is stored inside a database. That wouldn't be stored as part of the actual web application itself. Yeah?
Erik, when this happened, were you directed to Azure Backup at all by Azure?
Was that directed to Azure Backup?
Were you directed to Azure Backup? I just did a little research when this happened, and I noticed that there was a thing called Azure Backup.
Yes. Yeah, Azure does have systems in place for this. They weren't very, I'm going to say the word, my staff's going to laugh at me. They weren't very robust when we first set this thing up. And so we just had our own system for backing up the databases. It was really the databases we cared about. Because the websites, to speak to your question, the websites are always there as source code on many, many different machines. And so we never really worried about losing those files. Literally. If it was in a separate resource group, honestly, it's probably pretty safe. Actually, this brings up a really good point for discussion. People have to create their own disaster recovery approach, right? It's up to the company, right? And very often, the people that have an opportunity to provide valuable input on that are you guys, so the technologists involved. I mean, the people who are in charge of the resources and capital goods and intellectual property of a company, they have their own point of view about how these things should be done, right? And for them, it is all about preserving the resource. The technical implementation of how that's done, that's where they are automatically going to turn to the tech guys. So honestly, there probably would have been nothing really wrong with taking the approach of just within the same account, setting up a different resource group. But I just looked at, well, what's the actual worst case? What if our account gets shut down? I don't know why, but what if it did? In our early years, at one point, we were teaching a little WordPress course. And as part of the WordPress course, you would spin up your own WordPress website. Well, before we knew it, our hosting platform that we were using at the time had about 280 little teeny WordPress websites all set up on it because every student would come through would spin up at least one, maybe two. They might experiment, they might mess up, and they were very unhappy with us because once that student's gone, that website's out there active, totally subject to attack. But WordPress gets attacked a lot. It powers 25 to 30% of the websites in the world, so every hacker, with any technical skill is constantly trying to break into WordPress websites. So within about a year, we had about 180 completely infected websites that were just spamming all kinds of, we got into a lot of trouble. And they shut down our account, right? It was not a fun thing to do. And at that point, we realized, wow, this isn't actually going to be a core part of our curriculum. But they closed the account, and we couldn't stop them. I don't want to be dependent on anybody. And so we saw that as well. That's a really, really good point about the idea that, oh, I'm sorry, for people online, what he mentioned was that one of the recommended practices from Microsoft is within the same account to create a separate resource group, put your backups inside that. And we considered that, right? But it's precisely because you're still dependent upon that account you're tied to, we decided to go one step further, create a separate account. And we even went so far as to make sure that accounting knows that that account always gets paid. Now, it's a really cheap account because it doesn't spin up the website. It just stores the content for the websites and the databases. It's just, where do we put this electronic data? But it's utterly vital it gets paid for. And then we went one step further and said, okay, how do we like grab the stuff in our physical hands and walk away with it if we need to keep it safe? What if the Willamette River flooded? Whatever, right? Or what if Seattle flooded? Wait, that's the cloud. They have computers everywhere. But you know what I mean? You want a physical piece of it, or you want it in your hands. So we even decided to have it on-prem. But again, this is exactly why I wanted the Q&A, because it just brings up these points of discussion. There is no one-size-fits-all, as in any technology solution at all. And disaster recovery especially is one where there's a lot of different factors. You guys might be, when you get jobs, at a really small development shop. You know, there's 3 devs and one guy that owns the business, and you guys can just figure it out on your own and just ad hoc. And you might get a job at IBM, where their disaster recovery manual is about 24 pages long and involves 7 different layers of the business and is drilled on a quarterly basis and is absolutely stunningly backed up beyond belief. And should be. Why wouldn't it? They got the resources to do it, and if they lose that data, the whole business is tanked. So, but that's all to be discussed and worked out. There's lots of factors. So there's no one solution for it. So that's a good point.
Something that I've learned from my own disasters in my business before coming to tech school was even if you back up the data, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come back into your program the way you expect.
Yeah.
So part of my backup was always once a year testing that I could see that the data was getting backed up regularly. That it could still come back into the programs. Programs change, maybe the data doesn't change with it, or there's other links that are also
as a resource. And that's even drill recovering from the long term as a resource. And that means, like he's talking about, the whole system. That means literally spinning up the new website. It means attaching it to the database. It means having users log in, both administrative-wise and student-wise, to make sure that it actually operates correctly. And it's an interesting thing. Just Google these disaster recovery stories, and it makes for fun reading. Especially, well, it was funner before when it hadn't happened to be on such a big scale. You go, oh man, I'm glad that wasn't me. Now it was, right? But that's actually a really core thing. One of the big things that happens is they also don't get tested. And they're like, oh good, the backups are being made. Yeah, we're making sure that they're all there. But if you've gone through what it's actually going to be like when this goes down, everybody's freaking out. You don't want to be finding all these little kinks and bugs in the recovery process while you're in the middle of the disaster. You want to find them once a month, once a quarter. When you do it as a drill, go, oh wow, all of our links are dead. We're missing something that connects all these backup for the entire server. Everything, every day gets backed up and put over there like it was. But once we moved out of that and had a bunch of different, I would want to know.
I guess I do have another visual-related question.
Yeah, please.
Sorry if I'm
don't
want to monopolize the questions here, but so I'm just looking back on some emails, like from Brett, for example.
Yeah.
Had said that a lesson learned is to don't host your site on Azure and back your data up on Azure.
Yeah.
And so is that a lesson that
Oh,
you'll be using moving forward? Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
that's.
Are you doing site hosting with them still, or how?
Oh, we are absolutely using Azure. I love Azure. I'm not bent out of shape about it at all. I'm not going to walk away from them. They provide a great service, right? The resultant new disaster recovery system you see on the screen here is how we're actually implementing that. Yeah, technically they're both on Azure. We could have gone to a different platform, but then you have to learn that whole platform. And it doesn't really start, like, the central issue is that we were subject to everything being contained in one entity that could be pulled away. Yeah, we're not completely without risk, because both accounts could go down. But then we'll have the physical copy of it. Someone could come in and steal it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
That takes care of my question.
Yeah, please.
would it be restorable on another platform as you back it up now?
Oh, good question. For those of you online, he asked, he was thinking about, the Azure system we put together and even the local one. The files and all the data we're backing up, would it be restorable on a different platform?
Or is it really Microsoft?
Like, yeah, I don't think there's any kind of a flag that would have gone up. It's just, hey, something deleted. That happens all the time, right? I wish that there was something that, captured the fact that a deletion of a resource group occurred, but no confirmation dialog was collected. That would be wonderful. But no, I don't think they were. Not until we called. In a very pleasant manner, we called. We were actually a little bit upset. I don't know why. You had a question?
Yeah, how long did recovery take? 3 questions. How long did recovery take? How long would it take now at this point? And did you try turning it off and on again?
Very nice. Okay, for our people who are listening online, he said 3 questions. 1, how long did recovery take? How long would it take now with the existing system? And very much like the IT crowd, did you try turning it off and on again? So, for those of you who have not watched the British TV show, The IT Crowd, you're missing out on one of the best television programs ever made, okay? Watch that show. So, it took about a week and a half to get fully restored, okay? The primary website was up within about a minute, but to take the potential huge amount each one of those could be, and just on an automatic basis backing that up, probably it's just a profitability thing. That's certainly all the memory storage you need to be able to do all that kind of thing. So, but they are very clear about it. Like, they make it very clear that if you delete a resource group, there is no going back at all. But again, it didn't happen the usual way. So I wish they did. I looked. I'm a real Googler. But every single thing I saw was just going farther and farther down, like, oh, there is no coming back from this. Okay. All right. Now what do we do? Fair question, though. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Like for AWS and Google Cloud, do they have any differences? This exact same thing happen there, or do you know if they have any type of differences in their structure?
This is good, excellent. So what he asked, for the benefit of those online, is for like AWS, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud, I think they're calling it now. Is there a similar construct where this could happen, or is there something different about their infrastructure that would prevent it? At the end of the day, each of them is configured in such a way that there is a parent entity. Even if that entity is your account, it's still there, that it could go away. And everything inside that is gone. Now, I will say that that nearly every high-level entity like that does have a certain persistence. And what I mean is, like, let's say your AWS account or your Google Cloud account, you didn't pay the bill or whatever, or there's some sort of problem, you couldn't get into it. They're going to keep that data live for a certain period of time and really ding in over and over again, hey, it's about to go away. Are you sure you really want this to go away, right? And so there might be a bit more lag time, but at the end of the day, if that entity's gone, at a certain point, they're just going to clear the cache, so to speak. They're going to kill everything, okay? And this is the problem. You know that there's a t-shirt that says there's no such thing as the cloud, there's just someone else's computer, which is actually the best explanation of the cloud I've ever seen. Because it really is just someone else's computer. At the end of the day, there are things that could happen where they're going to say, you don't get to use our computer anymore. And all the data is going to go away. Whether it's that you let an account go inactive and unpaid, or you accidentally clicked on the yes dialog to delete a resource group, whatever, that can and will get wiped. But there's nothing inherent about how they've designed things that makes it a bit more protected against this. There's always a high-level entity that could get taken away. Good question, though. Yeah, go ahead.
Somewhat unrelated. What were some considerations when you first decided to use Azure as opposed to AWS or something?
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So he's asking, where's a bit unrelated, but that's totally fine, by the way. I don't care where this discussion goes. He's asking, what were some of the considerations when we got started in choosing to use Azure over AWS or Google or whatever? Perfectly good question. Let's address the Google one first. It didn't really exist when I started. I mean, there was some nascent sort of little cloud thing they had going on, but it was really not a prime offering for them at all. AWS, I hadn't used it. I used Azure at that time, and still predominantly a Microsoft-centric developer in terms of the actual coding I knew. And so I went with what I knew. Also, this is a very pragmatic, business-oriented decision. Microsoft at the time had and I don't know if it's still around, they had a phenomenal program called BizSpark, where for startups, they would give you 3 years of unlimited access to all kinds of software. It was phenomenal, and we're still using that to this day. Our Team Foundation server, which is the source control software we use, I got that in 2013 and spun it up, and it's been sitting there running ever since. And I got that through the BizSpark account. I think that's an $1,800 piece of software. It's pretty nice, right? In fact, this is an aside, but we were just about to hit that 3-year mark, right? And as you guys know, we use Visual Studio for a lot of the coursework that we do here, especially in the latter parts of the program. Visual Studio was a very expensive proposition. Okay, there's still versions of it that are quite expensive, but at the time, there was an express version of it that could hardly do anything, and then there was the full wheel deal. It was at least $1,000, maybe $1,800 a year for this piece of software. It was not cheap, and we were getting this free for all of our students as part of this BizSpark program, which is why it's there. They want to help businesses grow, but we were a few months away from that 3-year mark, and I was starting to have minor little freakouts about, we can't budget $1,800 a student for Visual Studio. And lo and behold, Visual Studio Community comes out. Free for anybody, and it does everything we need. I use Visual Studio Community for all of my pro software development. It does everything that we need for almost any instance, any use case. So that was a really, really nice day when we saw that announcement. It's like, I downloaded it immediately. Let's try this. Can it do everything we need, right? But that's why, it's a long-winded answer, but that's why we went with Azure. We went there because I knew it. I knew Azure really well. And it's interesting. You build up these prejudices over time to developers. It happens to the best of us. Even now, I can't get into that AWS ecosystem, but there are some developers that absolutely love it. And they adore how it's configured. And I just look at AWS and it's all Greek. I'm going to stay with Azure, which fine. There's room in this cloud ecosystem for all kinds of players. IBM is trying to have their own cloud offering, and Google, I have used theirs a little bit. It's really good. We went with Azure because I knew it. That's the only reason.
How much did cost? I assume cost played into it.
How much did Azure cost? Did cost play into it? That was his question. Honestly, at this point, I have no idea what our spend is on Azure. It's probably a couple, $3,000 a month, right? When it started, it was $72 a month. I remember that because there's hardly anything out there. I had that one VM and a couple of things I was messing around with. We were able to host everything we needed to do on one virtual machine, and it was really, really inexpensive, right? I remember my first 6 months free of Azure, because I think that's still available now. As a developer, you can go get an Azure account. I think you get 6 months free still. Our first 6 months as a school was all on that, and then we started getting spend a little more and spend a little more. But the cool thing is that it was always commensurate with the growth of the school, so it's never been a thing that was catastrophically expensive. And the systems inside Azure for configuring how much spend and how much use you get based on bandwidth used, they're really, really good. And so you can configure it so you're only paying more when you're actually using a lot more. That's one of the central reasons why they did it. So it's never been a prohibitive expense. But yeah, I think our spend is about $1,000 to $2,000 a month right now. It's really, honestly, if you think about what it would be like to try to maintain all those servers on site, especially with this hot weather right now, right? No thanks. No, I'm just going to give it to Azure and let them do it. So, good question. Other questions, observations? Yeah, go ahead.
Did Azure mention, probably not, but did they mention if this was just for the school, or did loss of data occur for other?
Oh, no, we knew. We knew it was just for us. One of the cool things about Azure is there's a lot of, if you know where to look, and if you know how to use Google, you can peek into anything. So we just looked at the activity logs for the whole account. And it was very clear. There was the instruction to delete that one tiny little, where did the disaster happen? While deleting a minor unused resource. We looked at the logs, and boom, there it is with the time date stamp. And it's this nice JSON file. It just unpacks, and you see everything inside it. And you see all it was a command to delete just that resource. That's all it was. But 1 second later, there's a whole separate command that we didn't issue to delete the whole resource group. And so the next 2 hours, everything got deleted. Yeah. So it didn't affect anybody else. Yeah. It was just us. We're special. I hope you guys never have to live through something like that. It's not fun. Other questions, observations? Oh, you good? Awesome. All right, well, I'll be around for a little bit. Anybody wants to grab me for a bit, I can spend some time down here talking. Was there anything online? I don't know if, I guess no one asked a question online. Good. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, well, thank you guys for, seriously, thank you for living through this and not wanting to kill me, okay? And, well, I don't trust you. Okay? And I'll just take this honestly as a way to learn something going into your career, that like, this stuff deserves thought. Don't get freaked out and think the environment is dangerous and all kinds of bad things can happen, but certainly operate with some prescience, some viewpoint to the future, and think about, well, what if it did happen? What would we do? So, all right, cool. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yep. How you been?
Right,
Exactly.
like the best story.
They were actually here a month ago, filming for a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad this didn't go down
Oh
while they
my
were
God,
here.
can you imagine how funny?
Oh man.
But people love these stories.
Yeah.
And now you have one of the best.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah,
In
you're
a
right.
bad
Yeah.
category. But
Yeah.
I'm old PR, so it's like,
Yeah,
man,
you're right.
like,
You're absolutely right.
that's right. You
Lessons
could
learned, baby.
you get some serious.
Woo.
So my big catastrophe was after I closed my office.
Oh yeah.
Right, I moved down